Welcome to the Place Scrutiny Committee meeting. It's our last one for this period. And I'm just going to go through the protocol, the general protocol to start off with. So this is a meeting of the council held in public. It's not a public meeting. There's no fire drill planned, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave by the nearest exit and meet by Wilkinson's. Is Wilkinson still there?
No, the building.
The building. Okay. Officers will advise when it's safe to return to the meeting. We are recording the meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating areas are not to be filmed. However, by entering into the meeting room and using the public seating area, you're consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and for training purposes. Anyone intending to film or audio record any part of this meeting is asked to do so in a manner that does not disrupt the meeting. So please refrain from filming in the public gallery. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to the first item on the agenda, and that's apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies received from Councillors Gascoigne and Councillor Kirkman. Thank you.
The second item is the declaration of interest. Does anybody have anything to declare? Any members? No? Nobody has anything. So we'll look at approving the minutes for the last meeting, which was held on the 28th of February. It could be found on pages 5 to 14. Do we agree that this is an accepted record of the meeting of that day? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So let's go to the main item, one of the two main items of this agenda, and that's the quarter four. So it's from 2023-2024 quarter four overview report for place theme. So who's going to be leading us on that?
Thank you, Chairman. So the report before you is the quarter four overview report. Obviously, for those that have spotted, quarter four is not over yet. It's not over until the end of March. But this gives you an update, certainly for the monthly PIs, which were for, I think in here is January and some of February, that is available. Obviously the quarterly ones will not be updated, but members will be updated in the new municipal year as the final outturn for Q4. So happy to take any questions from the variety of activity that has happened certainly over the last couple of months. Thank you.
Any questions from the members? Councillor McGeorge.
I've been up in the world. Thank you very much, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. Obviously, we've got the announcement of the change of the reusable recycling bags. Do we have any idea what we're looking at for those yet? I know it says that officers are working with the leader and the cabinet member. Do we know if we're currently looking at sticking with bags or going to bins, or is there we're literally starting from scratch on it? I'll just do one question at a time.
We're looking at a variety of options at the moment. We've got a timeline. Nothing's in and nothing is out at this stage to relook at it. And it will be far easier now because we've got far greater data about what we are collecting, where there are issues. So that gives us an opportunity to re-look during that period. So nothing's in, nothing's out at this stage. We're just doing some research to find out, because we're not the only people collecting waste from difficult places. So we will come back very early in the new municipal year with some suggestions of the way forward.
Thank you very much. And secondly, the new waste charge have obviously come in. Now we've gone from 32,000 previous subscribers to sort of 7,000 at the moment. If the increase doesn't sort of have the same uptake as last year, do we know what impact that will have sort of budgetary? Because at the moment it's sort of £1 million less coming in than what we would have been expecting if it was the same amount.
I'll update you. It's about, I think, about 16,000 now, 17,000 that we've got in. So they are coming in. We would only hire and use trucks for the amount we are collecting. So the financial impact lessens because we were taking crews out. We'd only put enough crews out for the amount that we are collecting. So we would have to look at it. There may well be an impact, but that is, of course, the risk of charging, and we'll make that judgment as we get there. But we're not panicking at the moment because it's just a slow burn of people ordering in. Last year there was a lot more noise around it, so people were booking in with it. Now it's a little bit slower, but there will be a lot more pushing towards April, and we are giving a little bit of leeway at the start of April for people to rebook. So we should be somewhere near it.
Councillor Child.
Yeah, following on from Councillor McDaughty's question, the first question, with regards to the changing of the bags when they're exchanged and that, what will be the process of getting rid of the old bags? Because obviously the size of them, some people complain that they don't have room in their black bins. So will the council be collecting those back, or what will be happening with them?
That will be part of the planning of what we do, but yeah, we won't leave residents to do what they want with them. We will probably be collecting them in some way, shape or form, but as you can imagine at the moment we are full on collecting. Now we know what we're collecting and how we're collecting it. It's given us the opportunity to start rebalancing our rounds, because some roads recycle more than others, some rounds are recycling more than others. We'll be able to manage performance a whole lot better, so we get a far better picture, which will release a bit of capacity for us to collect green bins that aren't being used, for example, and we'll also use to pick up the blue and white sacks. So we will work that into the whole project of changing the bags.
I've got a question with regards to the bags. So we've got the bags, and I just wondered if we're getting any user input into what we're going to be doing going forward in terms of what kind of bags we're getting. The reason I ask this is I'm aware that some residents haven't got much space within their homes for the current types of bags. So is it one size project for all, or is it would there be options of people going for bags that are more suited to the type of property they live in?
As I said, nothing's in, nothing's out, and that's what the consideration is. Will one size fit all? So that is part of the brief that we're looking at for going forward. So there could possibly be some differences between households of what they use to separate their recycling in.
And my last question on this is there a timeline?
There is, and that will be happening over the next 3 or 4 months. I have to remind members it took us 5 years to get to the point of implementation from the start, and trying to work out what to use is not an easy thing to do, because we may have to change vehicles and equipment, etc. So the consideration of what we do is a very large part. So it can't be a quick change, is what I'm saying. So the timeline of deciding what we do will be in at least the next 6 months to decision, and then the implementation will be timed on that.
Councillor Allen, then I'll come to you.
I've had a request for the green waste collection to be carried on over the November, December, January period, whereas there's no collection at the moment. People have said there's leaves that they collect, and they in those months they cut back all their growth, all their summer growth over that period, and they wondered what chances there of resuming that, providing that collection, green waste collection over those winter periods for those purposes.
I think the Cabinet member, we were minded to move it because we think it went a bit early. That will be a decision in the new municipal year if it is to come back. What I would say is the vast majority of green bins will be empty, and what that crew is doing, or those crews are doing during that period, as in pretty much all other local authorities, is the ones working on green waste then move on to residual waste, because there's far more residual waste in those weeks at Christmas and beyond Christmas. So that's the reason that we did it. And generally speaking, the green rounds come in very early from their rounds during that period. So yeah, I do get the leaves, do understand that, and that's something that'll have to be considered in the new year, whether to stop that. But it will cost therefore more money, because we'll need more crews and more vehicles to come in at Christmas.
Yes, I think it was okay over Christmas. You've got the Christmas waste to collect, but it was just that like November and there again in January, you've got quite a pruning demand there, and I found that myself. I got a second bin to deal with what I was cutting and pruning. So yeah, I just raised that on.
It wasn't stopped in November, it was only in December and into January when the end of the catch-up, so I think it was only 6 weeks. Yeah.
We've got Mr McKay.
Yeah, Paul, rubbish in my area, because I spend a lot of time walking about, it's residual waste. Now, I actually watched the binman the last week. They get the green bin, they're bigger than a normal green bin, but when they tip it in, it blows out. And I said to the bloke, "Are you going to pick it up?" And he went, no, it's not my job. I said, "Well, who's going to pick it up then?" So over the course of 4 weeks, it building up. So I put a formal complaint in, and eventually it got cleared. But when you walk around the estate, there's rubbish everywhere. I mean, my community centre, and James Emery's coming tomorrow to the community centre, it's just littered with rubbish that seems to be like funneling into the garden. I'm out there every day with a litter picker picking the rubbish up, which I've never done in 12 years. It's just rubbish everywhere. And I looked online the other day for biodegradable white bags to put my recycling in, to put it in the bin, but will you collect it? Because then it's not going to blow away no more. And there's just rubbish everywhere, mate. Basildon is like a tip.
I fundamentally disagree with that. There are areas that we know we've got problems in which do need to be sorted, and I think that's why Mr Hendry is coming over to take a look to sort out. But when I go around the borough, and I go around the whole borough on a very regular basis, it is not a tip everywhere. There are pockets that we need to deal with, definitely, but the way we've improved the service, far less is being spread, because we're not getting black sacks ripped open by animals. If I took you around Pitsea, where they're normally spread all over the place, that some of those areas it's completely disappeared. Certainly where I live, it's virtually totally disappeared from where foxes were ripping bags open. So it's far, far cleaner. We've got to get it right, and that's part of the stuff that we'll be looking at with our review. But certainly a black sack, moving away from that and getting them into bins is far, far, far better than we've ever had before.
Yeah, why I agree with that. If you go down Dellyman's, there's piles of black sacks. If you go round the back of the shops, there's piles of black sacks. I actually followed the bloke yesterday, and they're still in front of the dentist in pick sacks with all these tins and bottles of drink in there, which he normally dumps round the back of the shops. And I said to him, "Are you going to dump them round the back of the shops?" He said, "Oh no," he says, "I'm taking them home." But when I went for the walk with the dog that night, there they were, dumped in the dentist. So unless you catch these people, they're just going to keep doing it.
Just a comment on that. I think for me, in my area as well, and because I've been walking around the area and talking to some residents about the waste, and I was actually talking to one resident and she was showing me a bag that was just outside her house, and then another resident came out and started picking it up, and they must have put it there. So what I'm saying is it's more of an enforcement. Some of those issues are more of an enforcement issue. And I wonder how, what were we doing about enforcing, penalising those people who are not following the process. I know that we leave the bags are left, and the bags are left for sometimes, but sometimes the bags are left till another cycle of collection happens, and even then they're left again. So how are we managing that process of enforcement? Because I think that's where a major thing that we can do lies. One of the major solutions that we can do as a council is the enforcement.
Well, we've got 2 additional enforcement officers starting very shortly. That will help. Secondly, we get a number of complaints via members, for example, that have complained about the sack and no action being taken when it's not been reported. So there's no report of it by a resident. So they're saying resident, for example, resident A is complaining about black sacks at X, but they're not reporting it to the council, they're reporting it to a member, in which case it's not in the system, we won't be sending people out. So the council needs to know it's there, and it has to be reported through our systems for us to be able to act. So the new system is picking that up far better, and once we get our in-cab technology, which is currently working through procurement, the crews will be able to report it when they're going round, so that will start picking up, because at the moment we have no way of communicating between crew and back to the office and then into the system for then those people that have got to collect it. So we'll remind you that we can't pick up black sacks in the same vehicles that we pick up the black bins, because it's unsafe to put sacks. The loading of the sacks into those is unsafe, it's unsafe practice, so we have to make other arrangements. So unless we know where those sacks are, and we do want to get enforcement to get them, and we're doing a very good job at catching some of those people, and have done a lot of work to stop that, we need people to report, and we need the systems to back us up, and we need the boots on the ground, which we have got, but enforcement is improving, and I haven't got the figures on me now, but I can share those with members to let you know how it's doing. But we are catching people that are regular, very regular dumpers of rubbish.
Personally, I'd like to see those enforcement figures. I'd like to see them published. Published as in on the council, on Facebook, on social media. They are. And what the fines are, because there needs to be awareness of the penalties so that it could be a deterrent to people who are actually doing this.
Hello, I'm having a little bit of a moan here. So I do about 20 miles a week around the borough walking, and I can honestly say I've never in my whole life of living in the whole borough of Basildon and different areas seen such a mess. Everywhere you go, apart from the rubbish and bins and beds and whatever's been chucked, and I see a lot of all that stuff, and we do report it, of course. But it's other things. It's like the vegetation, the mould, the concrete, everything's broken up. There's drain hole covers missing. There's, like, even on the footpaths, cracks, everything. I've never seen the borough in such a damn mess, and I'm sorry to say it. And I've lived here for a long time, and I do get around quite a few areas. Surely, have you really walked around and seen most areas, please?
I was referring to waste, and I'll talk about waste. If you want to talk about the borough, then I would suggest, Chair, we get Essex County Council in the room to discuss the infrastructure of the town, because the vast majority you spoke about is not the responsibility of Basildon Council. We do regularly report all those things. It is not for us to start doing work on other people's land, so that may be something you may want to discuss.
Okay, so let's keep the discussion to what we have here in the report.
Also, you know, like brambles, you know, and the vegetation on the footpath and brambles and overgrown weeds. I mean, that is to do with us. And it really is nothing to do with us. Another day. Yeah, okay. That's all right.
We're re-looking at our grounds maintenance contract. What it will not pick up is the weeds that are responsibility of Essex County Council. We have got an extra mechanical sweeper and a crew that are going round and trying to get control of that, because we've now finding out that they're not sprayed by county, so it's in nobody's contract to do that. So we've got to find a way to sort that out, but again, that's something that we'll need to pick up in the new municipal year. So I can assure you it's not everywhere, and we are working our way around the borough. We have got wrong things in the wrong place in terms of vegetation. There's a lot of design work of the new town that needs to be changed, but we can't change everything overnight, and a lot of it, as I'm finding when I'm going around streets, we've pruned the borough. There are lots of areas that haven't been pruned because they're not ours and they're privately owned, and they're residents that are allowing it to grow and grow and grow, of which I've not got the responsibility to do it. Again, that needs to be Essex County Council that enforce that with residents to make sure they trim their areas back and keep their gardens, bushes, etc. under control. So it's very difficult. If we had the total control, then it would be far, far easier, but we've only got so much control over what we can do, but we keep trying with our partners to be able to make it look a bit better.
Okay, can we just keep on topic, please? I think you've made your point, Councillor Green. Okay, Councillor Allen.
Yes, about the reporting system. When you open the website, and there's a map where people have reported things. So there's a dumping ground in an alleyway off the upway, and there's always stuff dumped there. And so I went to report it, and I see it's already been reported, but it's still there, sort of like a fortnight later. I just wondered what the reaction is to what's on the map there for clearance.
What I would always say is report it again. We have literally cleared spaces, and then within an hour there's stuff back there. So I would say report it, and then because we haven't got a resource for every single street in the town, we wouldn't be able to afford it. So what we need to do is to get to those places where it really is being abused, and the new system is able to provide us with a heat map for regular reports, regular collection, also tells us where we've had good enforcement outcomes. So if we start building up that data, then we really get into start looking at prevention. I think Councillor, I can't remember which meeting it was, so apologies, but Councillor Blake was showing the new cameras that we've got. We've got enforcement cameras. So they will be going into places where we've got hotspots. We will be looking to take far greater action on those that are regularly, persistently, in fact, putting waste and dumping waste outside or outside other people's properties in some cases. So that's where we want to target our action and then really get down to that granular level with residents to sort those problems out and to speak to residents. But would always say, if it's there, don't worry, it's already been reported. Keep reporting it, because it then does draw it up as a hotspot. It's exactly the same way that the police work. If you draw the attention to a problem that keeps happening in an area, then we can put resources into it to stop it.
On the point of hotspots, because that's a particular problem in my area. You've just highlighted what makes a hotspot, the frequency of reporting of issues around that area. And I've asked this several times, why why don't we have a process where those hot spots are just checked automatically without it being reported, when we know that week by week there will be rubbish dumped there?
They are checked every week. They are checked every week.
But I'm having to report certain ones. They're not. The rubbish isn't cleared until I report it.
They're checked doesn't necessarily mean they're cleared. We check them every week, and then we're reporting them. But residents would normally report way before we'd be able to get there, because we don't know which day of the week the person's dumping, and I can't be everywhere all at the same time. We haven't got the resources to be everywhere. That's why if people report it, when the yard starts work in the morning, we know where the issues are and we know where the big problems are. So that's what focuses attention. That's the only way we can work to solve this problem. And I'll be very clear about this. This was a problem way before we changed waste. This problem's always been in this town, in these areas. Councillor Allen and I go and visit my dad, that's very close to Councillor Allen, and I'm looking at the same waste week in, week out, the people that just do not care about putting their waste out in the appropriate way. And that's been like that for as long as I've been visiting my mum and dad in their location. So we know that these are long-standing issues, not because we've changed waste. So the reality check is we need to get on top of those people to use what they need to use to put their waste out and not just dump it in front of other residents' properties.
But I would say that from my observation, you probably would know more because you've got an overview of everything going on in this area. But from my observation, the type of dumping is twofold. There's a dumping that happens around when the rubbish is collected, bags that are not taken, and then there's dumping that happens as the week progresses. So I'm particularly talking about the rubbish that doesn't get collected when the collection happens, because that seems to be creating a significant problem.
I will check on that because the cleaning crews go around the day after to check what's left.
The bags are not taken.
Because it needs to be investigated as an enforcement action.
Okay. So okay. There has to be a time.
That's why we're getting more resources in, because the amount of problems is outstripping the amount of time we've got. So what we are doing is targeting hotspots. We've got additional crew. We'll go out once those reports are made. If it's a hotspot, we'll be targeting those with enforcement officers to check through all the waste, which is not something that can be done very quickly. This takes a lot of time to be able. There's no point rushing it, because if you get it wrong, you've wasted a load of resource and you've got no outcome. So we have to make sure we've got a solid case to be able to issue a fixed penalty notice. So all that work has to carry on. Someone has to sort through the rubbish, build the evidence case, put the evidence case together. So it's not a quick and simple job to just go and pick it up. We could, of course, just send a load of trucks and pick it up, but it would just carry on and carry on and carry on. We would not be able to enforce.
Okay, but the question I have now, or the point I'm about to make, is with councillor inquiries, we have like a 10-day. Within 10 days, your inquiry would be resolved, or would be answered, or you get feedback from us. Why can't we have some similar thing? Even if it's going to take 20 days, at least we need to know what's the time frame. What's the time frame that we're working towards? It can't just be left without a time.
I can check what the service standard. I don't know off the top of my head. What I would say is we could be checking 30 sacks and not one piece of evidence is in those 30 sacks, so we could waste a day on those. So it's quite difficult to be able to give a time limit. If we find good evidence, then it goes quickly. If we search for a load and find nothing, we've wasted a load of time. So it's very, as I say, we have not got staff on every street corner to be able to do it. So there is a standard, and we can only prosecute people where we've got good evidence. So we need to be working harder to get residents where we are seeing regular We are talking to residents at doorsteps, so we're doing a lot of preventative work. If they can give us any intelligence, they might not want to report who's done it, but they could give us an indication. One of the major issues we've had is HMOs, which we are dealing with. There are people with the latest of private rented sector where people have had to furnish the house themselves. When they've left the house, the landlord just chucks everything outside and no one wants to say anything, so it makes it quite difficult for us. So we're battling quite a lot of different issues all over the borough, but we are doing quite well in terms of catching some of those, and certainly doing quite a lot of deterrent work, which is working. We've seen major improvements in some areas where residents have finally started doing what they should have been doing with the bins that they have. So it is improving. We know it's improving, and I certainly know it from when I go around the borough. It's getting better. We still have problem areas which we are dealing with.
It's getting better because I'm probably doing more reporting, but can't keep on reporting. It's unending. Councillor Allen.
Page
Yeah, the first bunker was put into, I think there's one in Northlands Park. I think that is currently in consultation with Lee Chapel North, I think. It was going near a flat block, I think. I will find out about you for that, but I think it's currently being checked out, because residents were being talked to about whether they would use that, and then easy access to work from there onto the industrial site. So that was part of the conversation. This is very much a trial at the moment that we're doing, because a lot of the issues about why people won't cycle is the security of the bike. So obviously Basel was designed, well, wasn't really designed for the car, but it wasn't really designed in some ways for where you can store a bicycle, particularly in flat blocks, etc. So that's some of the things, and it's likely some people living in flats will need access to a different mode of transport than a car. So we're looking to how we can make that better for them. This will be a trial, and then we will start to look to roll out to different areas as funding becomes available. But very much Lee Chapel North is a bit of a focus area for us as part of the Safe and Sound programme. We've already done some pedal power bikes in Felmores, etc. But this is about storage, because some people have got bikes and they've got them in their homes at the moment, which are not necessarily big enough to store a bike, as well as what else they've got in their home. It is like a mini garage, so it comes down and locks off. So it is quite a robust. It's a robust security. They're seen. You sometimes see them in the roads in London, so they take up a parking bay. So the residents get to park their bikes in there, but it is quite a robust storage unit.
Any more questions on
this report.
on item 4, which is the overview report? Any more questions before we move on? Is there anything you want to highlight?
No.
Paul? No? Okay.
Oh yeah. Page 35. The fourth paragraph down. Bids for Brownfield Release Fund. What's the news on that one?
The outcome for those won't be known until spring 2024. So that's funding to support old industrial areas, old used land rather than virgin land like Greenbelt. So it's so we won't know until spring 2024 on that. Spring 24. So not till April, May.
Where have brownfield site been identified?
I don't know. I'll have to get that for you, but that's part. I think that's. Yeah, I'll get that through to members. I'll contact John or Leslie on that. Yeah.
Someone would know what brownfields.
They will know exactly where they are. Yeah.
Page 36, overall status 1, 2, 3, 4. The rooftop developments programme has started. And what's the news on that one?
Picking up all my expertise in housing here, aren't you? Yeah. I'll have to get. It has started to commence. I'm trying to remember where they were, but I'll get those details sent through to you. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Any more questions before we move on? No? Okay, we've got a question. Mr. McKay.
They've done all that pathway and they've dug a pit, but the road is constantly flooded there. It never used to be flooded, but now the pit is half full of water and it's just constantly running into the road all the time. Is it supposed to do that?
Oh, they've looked at it, John. I've had no complaints about it so far, so I'll get someone to have a look. What I would say is the water table in Basildon is the highest, certainly I've ever known it. We're having flooding in areas we've never had flooding before. So if that pit, which is, I believe, at the bottom of the hill, if that pit wasn't there, that water would be going onto the road anyway. So that shows you what kind of water we're currently having. And I've got a number of properties that are in difficulty at the moment with water across the borough. So there is a lot more water than normal, John. So we may never have seen it before, but there is a lot more about.
I know that because I've got a leak in the community centre. Because when they built the houses at the bottom of the Ballard's Walk, top Ballard's Walk, one of the concerns was flooding, and I believe there's a pump in there somewhere in that to pump it into the Basildon River in Gloucester Park, but that was all the water that was coming off the hill. So maybe we've had too much rain.
Oh, God.
Just a nitpicking comment on page 26. Performance indicator monthly. It's got volume of waste sent for disposal in kilograms. (26). So it should be weight of waste sent for disposal. Okay. We'll look better next time.
It's technical. You're technical.
Sorry, just on that. So in December, I was asked a question by the chair. Unfortunately, couldn't be here this evening, but in terms of our residual waste and did it drop? How much has it dropped? So we've got the figures, the final figures for December. So in 2022, in December, we had 3,300 tonnes of residual waste that we sent to landfill. And in 2023, we have knocked 1,000 tonnes off of that, and it is 2,300 tonnes, and that does include us collecting all the black sacks that were left in the estates. That's not just out of the residual bin. So that has significantly changed it. The recycling rate in 2022 was 41%, which included green waste because we were collecting it during Christmas at that time, and the recycling rate finally confirmed for us at 52% this year, which did not include green waste because we weren't collecting it in December. So we can see a significant rise in the recycler. There is in the 52%, even in that 52%, we've made quite a large allocation for what might be contaminated. We haven't got the final contaminated figure, so that may go up. It certainly won't go down. So we have made, residents have made a significant change, and we know that from the amount of glass we're collecting, which we were never collecting before, the amount of food waste we are collecting, which we never collected before, and the amount of recycler we're collecting, which we've never collected before. So I'm just making a point before I leave, is that it may be difficult and this may be challenging, but what it has done is significantly changed the recycling rate of this town to make it look something like other places, whereas it was dropping to 41%, which is not a great figure to be proud of, I don't think, personally.
Thank you for that report. I guess we can now move on to item number 5, which is the draft drone policy.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor. So just a brief introduction to this policy. So at the meeting of the Place Scrutiny Committee on the 19th of October 2022, members considered a draft drone policy. That policy is very similar to the one you have on your agenda this evening. At that time, members made a number of comments about the policy, but they didn't make any formal recommendations. And I'll come to those comments shortly. What I would like to say in terms of giving you some context for this policy, if you think of it as a land management policy rather than a drone policy. And the reason I say that is because this is much more to do with about how the council uses its land and whether we allow drones to be flown off the land or not. We don't control the airspace, so we can't enforce or have any rules around what people do within in the airspace. That's controlled by the Civil Aviation Authority, and they set a number of guidelines that people who fly drones need to adhere to. So I just wanted to put that into some context for you. So in terms of the comments that were made when this policy came to this committee back in 2022, members asked whether authorisation of commercial drones to take off from council land should attract a fee. And I've gone back and had a look at this. We currently charge fees for assistance in filming activities in the borough, and they're set out on the Basildon Film Office webpage on our council website. So if someone wanted to use a drone for filming purposes, they would liaise with the communications department and there would be a fee for that use. We wouldn't charge if someone was using one for another purpose. Reference was made to existing bylaws and whether drones should be covered by those. Had a look into that, and we are of the view that we can look at this issue when the bylaws come up for renewal. There isn't merit in going down that route at the moment. And then finally, members recognised the need for proportionality in developing the policy, and there was some questions around should we allow toy drones, so kids have got them for Christmas, should we say no, you can't fly them, or should we have some leniency there? So it was requested that I put a specification into the policy, which I have done so. I'll just draw your attention to that just for you as a reference. That's on page 51 under drone classifications. We have put an indication of the size and speed of the type of drone that we think is something that could be seen as a toy related. Obviously we can't put a specification in there because this kind of technology changes so regularly, it'll be out of date as soon as you put it on the page. So they're the changes that have been made to the policy. I won't run through it in detail because I'm sure you've had the time to read it. So if you do have any questions that you'd like to raise, then please feel free to do so.
Sorry, if you got your hand up, okay.
Right. Drones, you got your light on. Over at Note Bridge, there's someone who films by drone and puts it on the site. Are they breaking any law? by filming you in your back garden?
So they aren't breaking any laws of the council, because as it stands at the moment, we don't have a policy. So it's nothing to do with the council in that respect. But there is, in the policy that we've been preparing, there is a phone number that you can contact if you have any concerns around behaviour of drone flyers. And it's with regards to filming and such like. Let me just double check. Yeah, so anything suspicious, dangerous or illegal, you can phone Crime Stoppers to report it if it's a criminal activity, if you believe something's been broken in terms of the law.
Because, I mean, when I used to live on the fens, the councils used to have planes go across, and they used to photograph the outbuildings and that, in case someone was putting up a shed, they shouldn't have put a shed up in it. And then there was another firm that used to take photographs of your building, so you got a nice photograph of your land and what you're asking. And I just wondered if that's what they're...
It could be. It's quite reasonable that drones are used to prevent or to support professions whereby sending somebody up a ladder would be more dangerous than flying a drone up to have a look. So it's quite common now for drones to be used for all sorts of jobs that perhaps people have done in the past. So you will have them flying over buildings to inspect roofs, that type of thing. So it could be something like that. But if you are concerned that something illegal is happening, you can contact Crime Stoppers to report that kind of behaviour.
Right, so I can't shoot it down then?
I can't recommend that.
Because one keeps flying around where I live. Every weekend he's flying around.
I think what we're saying is that if we have any concerns, then we can report it to the police. Yeah? Okay, thank you. Any other questions around this, Councillor?
It doesn't prevent people flying the drones over council land. It's just they can't stand in council land to fly them.
Yes, so this is regarding the flight of, so from the land, flying it off the land. This is what this policy relates to. Once it's in the air, it's the CAA those are the rules that come into place. So the CAA sets rules around how close you can fly to buildings, how close you can fly to roads. The drone policies across the country will vary quite significantly. If you are living near Heathrow, the possibility of you being able to fly a drone is very, very limited because of the airspace there. We don't have any restrictions on our airspace in the borough, so obviously we have slightly different things to contend with.
I think as you're talking, because I've seen drones being flown in Gloucester Park, yeah, so that just crossed my mind, and so that's saying that could be illegal. Could be legal if since it's off council property that they.
Yeah, so in the policy we're saying that under a certain weight and under a certain size and certain speed, then that's okay. If it's over that, then you need to seek permission from the council to fly those types of drones. And there'll be a process that will be followed in the council to determine whether that's appropriate. The guidance in the policy states ordinarily it'll be around where flying of the drone will help prevent workplace type accidents. So if they want to film something from height, it might be safer to do it from a drone than it is to dangle somebody, from height. So it's those types of things. If we need to inspect a roof, again, it might be safer to do so with a drone, more so than sending somebody up on a ladder. So there's some consideration around what's appropriate and what isn't appropriate use for drones from our land.
On page 44, you mentioned the bylaws, and you mentioned, in terms of the response under that, it says that this suggestion could be explored when the bylaws in the boroughs are updated. Do we have an idea of when that might happen?
There isn't a plan at the moment. I think it's more around whether there was an issue that would require the bylaw to be updated. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. So you kind of need to have some evidence to amend a bylaw, but if you don't have that evidence, then there's no point in updating the bylaw, if you see what I mean.
Chair, it's quite a complicated process to change bylaws, which is why the approach of if there's something that's happening that you need to change it, then change it, rather than review your bylaws all the time, because if you review them and keep doing it, it's a very long process to be able to do it for a bylaw. But don't forget, we've got the PESPO in place, which we've added the drones that can keep an eye on that, and therefore there is some enforcement around it that we might catch people that are using drones that are too big. So that's how we're protecting ourselves.
Well, I was thinking maybe there was a time period when the bylaw can be changed, maybe about 4 years or something like that. They need change.
If you go and stand at Mayflower, Tesco's, on certain days of the week, they're racing drones. You stand in the car park with Tesco's to the side, over there, you can hear them. And is that noise pollution? Because there's about 3 or 4 of them up racing, and they're there for about a couple of hours while you're shopping.
So in terms of this policy, unless they were flying it from council land, it wouldn't be something the council could necessarily do something about. It comes back to whether what they're doing breaks any laws, and so that would be a matter for the police to consider.
Yeah, all right.
Any more questions? Okay, so no. And we can go on to the next item, which is the work programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As mentioned, this is the final scheduled meeting of the Place Scrutiny Committee for this municipal year. This report provides details of items remaining on the work programme, so I refer members to page 58, which just lists the items to be brought forward to the next municipal year once the dates are confirmed. So the report is asking the committee to note and endorse the items currently identified to carry forward to the 2024-25 work programme, and consider any further items that need to be added, and also to note the Cabinet Forward Plan as in detailed enclosure number 1. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is this a place where we can talk about priority of issues or anything like that? Well, maybe we should just wait for the chair. Well, it's the last meeting anyway, so we can just leave it.
Yeah, these
Okay.
are just the items to go forward.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Is everybody happy with the items on the work plan? Okay.
I'm a tenant rep for Lee Chapel North, I've been for the last 23 years. And this Safe and Sound programme on Lee Chapel North, we seem to be left out. As much as I say what's happening, I don't seem to be getting out. And now I see there's a programme going to come forward with all your ideas in it, hopefully. But as reps, you know, we're not being consulted, we're not being asked for our opinion.
With respect, John, the reason it hasn't come here is because we haven't been able to get tenants reps with what the thinking is. It's a very complex matter. We need to understand all the things we can and we can't do. You know, the ownership of land and whose is what is quite difficult across the whole of the borough, particularly in the new town. So Lee Chapel North is no different to that. The plan being put together will be presented, but that's after it's gone through the appropriates, before it comes to scrutiny and then on to Cabinet for approval. So, and residents are being consulted quite heavily throughout this, and have been, to my knowledge, and certainly tenants have been. So, particularly focusing on some of the flat block areas where we have significant issues. So, I know because I've been part of the team, so I will feed that back to the team, and I'm sure they'll bring that through the tenants panel. You've got one coming up soon, haven't you? What was it?
The trouble is, you know, according to the government, we're supposed to be at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. We never are. And I can assure you that none of my residents that I speak to on a regular basis know anything about this Safe and Sound project that's happening, because the two consultations that you had when you went out on the estate, one was in Markham's Chase, the other one was on 5 Links. So the bottom half of Lee Chapel North, no one knows nothing about it. Absolutely nothing. And people ask me, they come up to me and say, well, what's happening with this Safe and Sound programme? I said, I haven't got a clue, mate. I've asked countless times, even just be told what's going to happen. Nothing. I'm in the dark as anybody else.
I'll certainly pass that on to the lead director and we'll make sure that's communicated to John.
I just have a question on the draft parking strategy. I just wanted to understand the scope of that particular strategy.
It's on-street and off-street parking. It's looking at the commercial opportunity for any more car parking, etc. An improvement to our current, which we are doing some of that from our money from SEP. So there are some improvements which will be new machines. I think white lining, etc. will be done. Excuse me. And the other part is looking at how we can improve on-street parking in residential areas. But at the moment, with the council's other priorities, that one is being paused at this moment until we have a clear direction of what we need to do in our priority list.
I wondered if we could bring that up in the list. Is there a reason why it's at the very bottom?
It's not a priority list. It's just a list of the items that will be on the next or future agendas. It's just a list, not a priority list.